It's more interesting in cocktail parties and barbecues to say that than patent lawyer. But by night, I'm a thrivologist. I've come to be very interested in human thriving, and particularly my own human thriving, the thriving of my children. So I've been investigating this intensely over the last several years. In particular, I got really interested in connection when my marriage started breaking up about that's probably a dozen years ago. And I realized that I had some competence in connecting, but I really hadn't paid much attention to it, and I didn't know really what it was. So I got curious, went to a bunch of workshops out in San Francisco, men's workshops, about the inner game of connecting and all kinds of stuff, and read books like The Power of Now, and ended up taking a year-long training course out there, transformational coaching and leadership training by a group that's now known as the Circling Institute, because I realized how fundamental connection is in my life. And I wanted not to be, I didn't want it to be an accident that I had a good connection. I wanted to understand how to create that on demand. And folks out in San Francisco that have been focused on this issue, they're kind of like, you know, some people are connoisseurs of wine, and they put copious amounts of attention on the wine, and they learn how to make all kinds of very subtle distinctions that if you're not into wine, you have no idea, right? And this is true in almost every aspect of life, right? If you guys are software developers or whatever you do, you're aware of distinctions and issues and frameworks for understanding that realm that most other people would have no idea about. Where this group had a lot of distinctions and a lot of frameworks and understanding about human connection. And I feel still really blessed that I was able to find this group of people and to learn what I learned. Let's see. One quote I want to share with you, there's actually two leading quotes. One, man's mind stretched to a new idea never returns to its original shape. So I'm hoping to offer you some ideas and distinctions and things that really alter how you experience and think about connection in the world. The other thing is I'll just mention that when I went out to the San Francisco to his workshops and did some, and it was like a 3-day men's workshop, 30 hours. And I probably have about 200 hours of other training after that. What I realized is that there are a lot of people who need to know what I learned, and they're suffering without it. And I got like, man, I really got to do something about this, because I see my family members suffering because they don't understand what's happening, because they don't have those distinctions, right? It's like having a computer, or it's like having a car not knowing how it works, right? Or not knowing that there's a dashboard and steering wheels and gas pedals and brake pedals that you can use, right? Connection is that vital in our lives that people don't have a dashboard for even understanding how to think about it in a deeper way. They don't even understand how much they're actually suffering for not having, or how much more they could have if they had a little bit of knowledge. So I feel like I discovered ice cream when I went there. Like, holy cow, there's ice cream here. I didn't even, right? It's like I've been going to this restaurant my whole life and having experiences and not knowing that if I turned over the back page, right, there was ice cream to be had. And so I went out there for one workshop, and I went out there for another action, because I love this ice cream. And then I realized, I don't want to go to San Francisco every time I want to have ice cream. I want to be able to make it on demand. And so I signed up for a year-long course to help me get more handle on what the ice cream was. But after all those hours and hours and hours, and I realized, how many people are going to do this on the planet? How many people are going to go to a connection workshop? Raise your hand here if you've been to a workshop on human connection or relationships. We got 1, 2, 3. That's a very small percentage, right? If you multiply that across 7 billion people, 8 billion people on the planet, we're talking a lot of people aren't going to do that. So I got interested in thinking, well, how do I scale this knowledge? How do I get it out? How do I become the McDonald's of oneness? Is an idea that I had. And then I had, how many of you know about the 80-20 rule? Right? And I thought, wow, of all these workshops and things that I've learned, right? It's 20%, right? 20% of what I learned is counting for 80% of the value of it. That got me excited because I realized, holy cow, there is a way to scale this if we could figure out what the 20% was that made the 80% impact. And that's what I've been focusing on in the last 3-4 years. I started a side venture. You know, Fantastic IP Consulting is my main gig. And I started a side venture called the Oneness Company. And it's about, okay, how do I find that 20% of knowledge and put that and package it in a way that will make a difference in people and have them have an experience. Kind of like, you know, when you go to the eye doctor, like most people don't know they can't see until they go to the eye doctor and they have that A-B comparison, right? Is it better with this lens or that lens? Well, I'm hoping that today to give you a little sample of that sort of A-B switch, right? Or at least set you on a path to doing that. Everyone comes in with their own experiences around connection, their own hurts and wounds around it. But hopefully I can offer you something that's going to make a difference that way. First of all, if you think you're good at connecting, raise your hand. Okay, I'll raise my hand. I think I'm good, right? How many of you think you're good at connecting on Zoom? Yeah, we don't have a lot of confidence there, right? And not even really a lot of confidence in real life. And confidence comes from actually having a capability, right? You have a skill, something that you can do over and over with repeatable results, right? How many think it would be a great idea to have a capability and have that confidence around human connection? All right, I'm glad you're here. This is more people than I think signed up on the list. So it's good to see you here. And how many of you ever experienced something in your life that you thought was like an extraordinary connection, a breakthrough connection, something that really had an impact? Like if you're married or you've been attracted to another human, right? You have a lover, right? You've probably experienced that. And how many of you would say that was awkward in some way? Right? Raise them up high. You had an extraordinary connection and you realized that, holy cow, that was awkward. Right? So this is a key right here. That's the key clue. It's awkward. So what I've come to tell people is that awkwardness is the gateway to awesomeness. So awkward, no one really enjoys being awkward, but I think that you enjoy the fruits that come when you go through that awkwardness. And that's one of the key ideas I want you to take away today is that human connection is awkward. And many of us refrain from having that awkward experience, but it's costing you way more than you even know, right? It's costing you way more than you even know. Because if you hadn't gone through the awkward experience that led to your finding your marriage partner or your current partner or whatever, right? If you hadn't gone through that job interview, right, which is awkward, right, you wouldn't have ended up on the other side of something that hopefully is really good for you, maybe even magnificent. So I'm going to invite you today to lean into that awkwardness. We're going to do some exercises later on. But I'm going to sort of hopefully build you up. I'm trying to build you up to a stage now where, first of all, you think that, oh, I can offer you something of value in this short time that can make a difference. Two is that it's going to be worth it to go through that awkwardness. Because if you don't think it's worth it to go through that awkwardness, you're not going to do it. You have a way of connecting now that's effective to the certain level that it is, right? You're like 100% optimized to have the results that you're getting in your connections now. 100% optimized. Every part of your being, way of being, is structured to give you the results that you're getting. If you want something different, you're going to need to change that, and that's going to be incredibly awkward. And if you don't think that there's some payoff on the other side, you're not going to do it. You're going to fall back and do what you've always been doing. That's what habits work, right? We get comfortable, we do what we do. So the first thing, I created this thing I call it the breakthrough connection method. That's my fanciest word for it, phrase right now, a breakthrough connection method. And first thing we know about a breakthrough connection is that there's some awkwardness. I think we pretty much concluded that based on just the empirical data of people raising their hands right now. There's something awkward about that. So I've read a bunch of books to try to, and research papers and things to try to make sense of some of the learnings and things that I've been taught by people that in a more experiential base, because I know we're technologists, right? We believe in science, and we have some facility with that. So there's copious amounts of material on and research from psychologists and even neuroscientists, and there's even some guy who created this whole field called interneurobiology, right? Interneurobiology, think about that, right? That we're all connected in a way, and he's actually like trying to make distinctions and bring science together to actually prove that. So I'm going to go rattle off here a few reasons why human connection is so important and why you want to invest even more time in it. There's a great book called let's see, my slides are out of order. So one of the things that we're doing here, and one of the reasons I decided on the Uber drive up here not to go with these slides is because, you know, I was scared to do it without the slides, right? But I realized what I was going to do today was ask you basically to depart from your normal script and get awkward. And I decided that, you know what, even though I spent probably 15 hours putting these things together, I need to be more awkward with you, right? Because I'm going to invite you to get awkward with me and other people here during this 45 minutes. So let me, there are numbers on here I'm noticing. 2, 3, 8. So one of the big reasons for, my big reason for wanting to really get into connection is that I want to love my family better. I have twins, they're 20 now. And I realized that I want to be an extraordinary father. I want to have impact on them. And I realized that the greatest legacy I have as a father is how I live day to day. It's how I live day to day. It's not like how big the house is or what kind of title I have at work or how much money is in the bank account. It's how I live every day. Do I wake up inspired, right? Do I have impact in their lives, right? Do they feel like that I'm with them when I'm with them? So that was my number one reason for, like, look, I want to get good at this. Not only for myself, but because I want to get good for them. And I know that my habits are translated down to them. They're going to learn, they've already learned how to connect at a certain level based on how I am with them and how their mother is with them. And we're divorced now, but they've learned, I've given them a blueprint on how to move through the world, and I wanted to give them a better blueprint. How many of you have children? How many of you have spouses? How many of you have parents that you like, holy cow, maybe you don't feel like that you've connected with them as well as you want? This was the biggest reason I decided to pour myself into this, because I realized it was fundamental. There's one quote, I don't know if I read this one yet. The most exciting breakthroughs of the 21st century will not occur because of technology. Will not occur because of technology, but because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. That was John Naismith. He wrote this in his Megatrends back in the mid-'80s. We're understanding that now. You see work organizations that are changing because they recognize there is something about being human that they have not really recognized before. And so, the breakthrough connection method. The first part is to get clear and make a decision that you need to invest, that it's worth it your time to invest in getting better at connection. The second thing is to get clear on what connection is. Now, I have a lot of things I could say about that, but in the interest of making more time for our interactive part of this experience, this is the best metaphor that I found for human connection. You see that? This is the, paper cup, the plastic cup telephone, right? We know that we're not communicating anything across. There's no connection now, right? If I tried to say something in here and it came out the other end, we know that it's not going to work, right? Everyone clear on that? If we pull it tight, we have a connection. We can communicate across that channel. If you imagine yourself being one of these cups and you're in conversation with someone, right? You can feel the tension, right? If you're in it, right? It's like you don't know what's going to happen next, and you're ready for anything to happen. That takes a lot of energy to maintain that connection. This is why we don't do it, right? This is why internet is exploding now. That's why people say we have so much connectivity now, but they're confused in the fact that we can have so much information coming in, and that's all asynchronous. But this is totally synchronous. It costs a lot of, we know I don't know what you guys are doing, what you do for a living, but if you're in the network technologies, or you realize about, if you're really in a system that has a lot of, if you have a website with a bunch of traffic on it, right, you know that you're not going to maintain a real-time synchronous connection with all the people that are pinging that website, right? You know that's just too expensive. And so asynchronous connection has its place because it saves resources and it's more efficient. But we're bombarded by asynchronous connection now. And because of that, we've adopted habits in going slack. Even in real-time communications, you'll be thinking about, you won't be paying attention to what someone's saying, you'll be thinking about what you're going to say. So you've let the tension out of the line between you. So if you just take this image around with you and start playing with it, this idea like that when you're with your kids, how taut is that line between us, right? How much am I on the edge of my seat? Am I poised, right? Am I like engaged? You can even see it in your body language. Like if all of you sit up right now, and like lean into me, right? Lean into me, right? Just like bring your posture alert. Like I feel like you're way here more now, right? You can do this on Zoom easily, right? This is a very easy thing to do on Zoom because you put your body, you say, hey, I'm ready. I'm here with you. I'm paying attention. But it takes energy to do that, so you need to prepare in a way. So you have to decide that it's worth your time, and you have to get clear on what it is. And it's your attention and the quality of your attention that creates that tightens that cord between the two of you. And you can do this across a team too. You know when people are there engaged. Like right now I'm feeling some chill bumps in my back as I feel this extra energy from you guys as you awakened here. This is huge. It's so simple, but it's huge. It's taken me like 10 years of thinking about how to actually describe this better. This is it. Let's see. Sensory experience. So bottom line is it's a sensory experience. If I told you right now that I've hired a caterer, I've told them, look, I got 30 people, and I got $300,000 to spend. We're going to have one meal. 300, right? $10,000 a person. What's that going to do with your attention? I tell you, look, here's a $10,000 meal. Are you going to bring a different quality of attention to that experience? This is what you need to decide in your lives. Like how valuable is the thing you're about to get into? How valuable is the connection that you could possibly have with someone for you? Now, I'm a tango dancer. I love tango. It's my new drug of choice. I discovered it about 6-7 years ago. After I've been through all these other workshops, right, I discovered tango. And it's like nonverbal. It's like a walking hug, right? They say 1 heart, 4 legs. It is so much connection, right? You've got a woman against your body, and you're leading her with your torso. She's listening, and you're listening to see where she lands it, right? I love it. It's my new drug of choice. So, but it's all about the sensory experience and whether or not you're going to bring yourself to it. And I say it requires a lot of energy because we're always sensing things, but we're not really paying attention to what we're sensing. Our mind is off, doing what it does. That's an energy efficient thing for us to be wandering, right? Because but if we haven't taken care of ourselves, if we haven't eaten well, right, we're going to have different capabilities to process that information, to even hold our attention on something. So one of the things we're going to do here soon is we're going to have some experience about what it feels like to hold attention on someone and have them have attention on us. This is so good. I'm glad I've never done it like I did before and have everyone sit up. It just makes a huge difference. I feel like a surge in me. And I think that this is what we can do. There are studies that show that you can improve the IQ of a group with the quality of connection you have, because we can all connect and synchronize, and we can become a collective consciousness and actually have access to that. So the best teams, there's a great book called Social Physics by a guy from MIT. He talks about this and how they measure the teams and their interactions before. It didn't matter what they were saying. They had little gizmos on them to track the length of time they were talking to each other, or how much, and if it's a group, how the time was distributed across the group, and that everyone had a chance to contribute in equal amounts. Google has done similar things. There's also studies about social psychological safety, people's willingness to actually be awkward with each other and say something that they didn't know they were going to say. Let's see here how we're doing on time. Okay. This is what happens when you go off-road, right? You get these moments where you're not quite sure where you're going to be. So the first part, I guess in the breakthrough connection method, this is the before part, where we have to get clear on set ourselves up to be in a position to connect. So we need to get clear that it's valuable, what it is, that it's valuable and what it is. And there was one third part that I added last night at the last minute, and I'm trying to remember what that was. And what it is it's a sensory experience. And hang with me. Yes, it is definitely worth investing in. What it is, and it'll come back to me later. It must not be that important. So now we're going to do an exercise. We're going to get into the during part. There's before, during, and after. The before part is to get you set up to go through the awkwardness. The during part is, okay, let's have a little structure about how we get awkward together. And I created this method. I call it it's not that I created the method. It's what I discerned as some critical pieces out of what I learned in these workshops. Almost all the workshops have a warm-up. They do a warm-up before they get into something deeper. And what I realized is I learned so much in the warm-ups that I'm like, oh, everyone should do these warm-ups. If they just did these warm-ups, they would start having their own insights about what was important and what was not. They didn't need all the other 80% of the material to really get what was already in the warm-up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some, I'm going to ask you to stand up. So please stand up. We're going to and find a partner. And notice right now as you're finding a partner, if you don't have a partner, raise your hand. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand and find someone with their hand up so that you can partner up. If you're feeling awkward now, just notice that, right? Because part of this is like to acclimate ourselves to the awkwardness. Because this energy flowing in our body and sensation, it's just that we're not used to it. How many of you have ever had your leg fall asleep? Right? And when it wakes up, how many enjoy that experience? Right? Why don't you? What if you did? Right? What if you did enjoy that waking up, right? That's the life in your body that you're becoming aware of, right? That's how much energy. It feels like a gigawatt sensation, but if you actually, instead of running away from it, invite yourself into it, like, oh, I'm going to put my attention on it and see, because what you're doing then is start tuning your body to an awkwardness and to an energy sensation, right? We know it's not going to kill us, right? We've had it enough times, we know we're not going to die from it. But if we actually start to acclimate ourselves to that sensation, we're going to be preparing ourselves to be really connection warriors, because there's plenty of times in your life where you're going to be awkward and you're going to run away from something that you wish that you hadn't. It might be like, man, that was the most beautiful woman, and I didn't go talk to her, right? Or I couldn't say anything because I couldn't deal with the energy in my body at the time, right? So this is what we're doing. We're learning how to use the technology of the human body, is what we're doing here. We're learning how to use the technology. So embrace that awkwardness, notice it, and notice any thoughts that you have coming up. What we're going to do is we're going to do some short, silent eye gazing. So I'm going to ask you just, we're going to do like 30 seconds right now. I'm going to ask you to, and it's not a staring contest. You know, babies make eye contact. How many of you have made eye contact with a baby before? Do you ever see them just like get nervous and avert their eyes? No. What do? They're just totally unapologetic. Right? But they're not, it's not even like, no one's even intimidated by it, right? There's something really extraordinarily beautiful and open about it. But we all have that. We all came into this world. We have that same capability in us. But we got a lot of stuff going on in the background that has us think, well, they're going to think this is weird, whatever, right? And we start feeling the energy that we have become unaccustomed to, and we break away from the connection. One of the things I want to give you an idea of is like, if you jumped in, how many of you have jumped into a pool or a lake? And it's, right? And what happens in your body when you first do that? Yeah. Right? Maybe a contraction, right? And then what happens if you stay there? You acclimate, right? This is what we do with awkwardness. It's like being that experience of that cool water, letting your butt, right? And then if you actually relax, you become, pretty soon you don't even notice the water anymore. You become one with it. And this is what, why I call the Oneness Company the Oneness Company. Because when we get to that point, right, it's like, it's the other metaphor I like is it's like you're on a date, your first date, right? And you're thinking like, man, I'm really attracted to her, or I'm really attracted to him. I would really like the kiss, but you don't know if you're going to have a first kiss or not. But as soon as you do have the first kiss, you know, it's all that tension. As soon as you have that first kiss, after that, it's like you're all relaxed and you're easy because you feel like something's possible that wasn't before, right? You're in a whole new territory. And this is what happens when we allow ourselves to get through this. So many times what's happening, particularly with eye contact, 60% of our brain is related to visual processing. So we're taking in lots of information all the time. And with eye contact is that people make it and they average like 3 seconds. They'll hold it for 3 seconds, maybe 3 seconds, right? And then they break away. But for me, it's just like letting that tension go slack, right? It's like you're breaking away, you're breaking off the connection. But if you held it longer, something else might happen, right? Something else might become possible. So we're going to do 30 seconds. It's not a staring contest. You can blink as often as you want or not. And but I do invite you to sort of stay in the experience and notice what's happening. In this noticing part, you're going to notice that you're going to hear me use that word a lot because it's a very powerful word. Notice. I'm noticing, right? Because, well, I won't get into the metaphysics of it, but noticing is so powerful. So we're going to do 30 seconds. Let me get my timer out so I don't torture you guys too much. How many of you have done this before? Oh, we got a few people that, okay, those are the people that are pretty cool cucumbers right now. Oh, I've done this before, I got it. So let me get my timer. So you can, and I invite you, sometimes it's hard with two eyes, so you can just focus on one eye. Oftentimes people say the left eye is a bit, and so you can blink as much as you want, and just notice what's happening in you. It's totally silent. Okay, timer, where are you? And I'll say, just notice what's happening. You might have a desire to start chattering. That might be you burning off that energy, right? That you could be using to actually connecting. All right, ready? Hey guys, we're going to do this silently because I want you to have your interior experience here, because this is important. This is when you start to build that muscle and that capacity to deal with that awkwardness, right? So, ready, set, go. Just notice what's happening. Okay, now make a silent gesture of gratitude to your partner and go find another one. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand and make it easier for other folks to find you. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand. Has everyone got a partner? Did we lose somebody? That's the last one. All right, come to silence, please. I invite you all to close your eyes just to sort of like cleanse your palate, so to speak. Every human has a different flavor, a different sensory experience, and other people are going to sense your flavor and have a different sense than the person before. So bring your eyes to a close. And if you find it awkward to have your eyes closed in a room full of people, just notice that, right? Because we don't do this in our culture, unless you're a regular meditator, but that's not part of our culture as a whole, right? So just notice what's happening in your body. And we're going to learn how to be with this. This is sensations. This is the whole part of being able to have more connection and to be and embrace that arc. Okay, on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes, and there's going to be a new person, a new human standing in front of you, someone you've never met, someone that's traveled a lifetime to be here in this moment with you. A lifetime of change, of crossing roads and bridges and going up hills and valleys and vacations and heartaches, to bring that person in front of you. So it's real kind of a miracle if you figure out the odds of all that. So this time we're going to go for a minute. Remember, you can blink as often as you need to or want. I invite you to focus on one eye if you find if you find your attention dithering too much. Ready, set, oops, not a minute and a half, but a minute. Ready, set, go. Notice if your attention is wandering. And just bring it back. Notice if you're starting to fidget anywhere. No need to change it, but just notice it. And maybe at some point you might get curious about what has me Like, am I trying to bleed off extra energy because I'm concerned about what they might be thinking about me? Or I'm concerned about what I'm thinking about them? Notice if you're still breathing. I think this thing should be going off soon, but I don't see it going off. So I'm going to call it time. So I'm going to have you make a gesture of gratitude with your partner and take a seat for a moment. We're going to take some shares about what that's like. If you find that you want to be, if you find that you're heading out of the room and you don't have a really good reason, just notice that. Just notice that. And that might be like, holy cow, I'm really afraid about what might happen next based on this, or I don't want any more of this. And that's fine. Everyone is where they are in terms of, eye contact is really intense, particularly in our culture where we're not practiced doing it. I oftentimes think about that. I remember we had a National Geographic magazine, the subscription when I was a kid. And I grew up in the Deep South in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. And but we had these magazines, and I would look at the pictures of all the indigenous people, and I was always struck by, like, the quality of their eyes in these pictures. Like, there was something really open and fearless about it. Like, it was almost like that infant gaze. But I didn't know this at the time, or I hadn't really paid attention to infants that much. But there was something really open and expansive and embracing about it. And I imagine that those people, those indigenous people, because they don't have so many distractions, right? That they spend a lot of time, and it's very easy for them just to connect with some people because they're really in tune with each other, and they've acclimated to that. Where in our culture, we've got moved away from it. You know, a couple of summers ago, I was on, when I was really looking for ways to get this information out, I created a thing called Connectorcise. It's a 60-minute workout for connection. And I was trying to promote it. And I went to Minneapolis Open Streets. I had a little booth. And I was inviting people to do 60-second eye gaze challenges with me. Strangers, right? And some people was like, yeah, I'm up for that. Other people like, they wanted to run the hell away from me as fast as they could. I mean, hundreds of people I asked. The kids, pretty much, a lot of them, the kids were there, right? Kids were up for it because they thought it was a staring contest. But then I said, hey, want to go 3 minutes, right? And their parents are going, there's no way Joey can do 3 minutes. There's no way he can do it. And then we sit down and I say, Joey, who's the boss of your brain? Who's the boss of your brain? And Joey locked in, right? Because this is what it comes down to. Who's the boss of your brain, right? Who's in charge of when you cut away from a connection or not? That was the third thing that I meant to mention, is that you're in charge of the level of connection that you have. You're in charge. If you take charge, right? If you don't, something else is running the show there and limiting what's possible for you with people, and you don't even know it. Except now, maybe you have a clue that there's something there, and you'll play with that. So let's check my time here. When are we done? 11:10? Is that the 11:05? So let's take some shares about what that experience was like, and then any questions about how we can use this on Zoom. Because I know that I've dredged up a lot of ideas here, and you might like, well, what does this got to do with Zoom, and what can I do different? And I'm not going to go into the details of this SSS method that I made, because I've given you a little bit of it in that exercise with the eye gazing. But any shares about what it was like to hold that eye gaze with people? Yes, sir.
I would try not to fidget, but then it would just make me fidget like somewhere else. It would like
something wanted to move in you to deal with, I'm imagining it was a kind of an agitation.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so I'm trying to keep my hands still.
Uh-huh.
Realize I'm rocking and try not to rock. And,
Uh-huh.
you know, I'm doing something.
So that was one of the things that you were noticing your own body,
Yeah.
what was happening. Anybody else?
So I guess I was just wondering, do you have advice on how to deal with that awkward silence? I think a lot of us want to fill the void. So do you, in your method?
Yeah, well, I think that being a yes to your experience is teaching you so much, right? If you're feeling really that awkwardness, like I would invite you at least to well, is there something that I need to say? Check in with yourself and find out, is there something I need to say now? Or is there something that I'm wanting them to say? Is there a desire that I actually have? And then maybe if you want to cut the silence off, is to express that, right? If you can, or sometimes you can even tell someone like, oh, this is feeling really awkward to me, right? And they might say, yeah, it's feeling awkward to me too. And then you might even explore that together. But what you've done when you did that, you've tightened the connection, right? It's just like it's like if these cups could talk, right? If these cups could actually talk to each other, well, you're pulling too hard. You know, I'm feeling that right here, and it's just like, it's too hard, right? It's going to break. And if you knew that as the other cup, you might slack off just a little bit. So, okay, I'll lighten up a little bit, right? And all of a sudden, you're there together in a deeper way. So that awkwardness that you're feeling, that sort of pregnant pause thing, is very useful. It's energy that you can be leveraged for something else, right? To leverage to actually illuminate something that's alive, something that needs to be said. It could be like you have an idea you want to be holding back if you're in a business context, right? Or it's like, oh, I don't know what to say now. It's like me with all this, like, I'm sitting here fumbling through this thing, thinking like they're thinking I'm an idiot and I'm wasting your time and blah, blah, blah. I got all this chatter going on. But if I share that, all of a sudden, I'm communicating vital information for maintaining the connection, right? I'm telling you, oh, I'm feeling awkward, but I'm actually drawing you in by sharing my present moment experience. Any other shares about the eye gazing?
So you're saying to kind of like communicate? Because going off what she said, like I have that same thing where it's like, I don't know if it's cultural or what, but always a need to like avoid long periods of silence or it becomes awkward.
Yeah, it becomes awkward. But I invite you to go deeper into that. Like you start checking in with yourself and noticing, well, what am I thinking right now? One of the games that if we had more time, and I'm gonna, this probably should have been a 90-minute thing, but is that we play a game where in the sensing, the during part of a connection, we notice, imagine, and feel. You notice what you're noticing. Oh, I'm noticing an awkwardness. And you're like, what am I thinking or imagining about this, right? Oh, well, I'm imagining that they're feeling awkward too, or I'm imagining they're thinking I'm not cool, or whatever it is, right? You've got some thought going on. And it may or not be true. That's why I use the term imagining. But you start to get in contact with your actual experience instead of jumping out of it to do something to alleviate the tension that you're feeling, right? But if you hold the tension, there's usually some magic there. And the noticing, that's why I like the word noticing so much, it's so powerful. It's like, oh, what am I noticing now? I use this all the time. When you're out in daily life, you know, I'm with cashier, because I realize connection is so important to me because it ramps up my energy. It's just like I'm the cell phone with a cord hanging out, right, and battery's low. I can go up to anybody, and I'm plugging in. I'm getting a charge. I'm charging them too. It's like a two-way thing. You break that, you create that connection because they're needing it too. Everyone needs this. There's an epidemic of loneliness in the world. If you Google that, you'll find like hundreds of articles and there's research papers talking about it. But it's because people aren't holding that attention. Or if they do, they hold it for a second and they let go and they never acclimate, and so they feel really anxious, right? And we're hardwired for this connection because if you don't, this is one of the key distinctions I think that you should take away. Language is an invention. There was a time when humans did not have the spoken word, yet they needed to work and cooperate and collaborate together to survive. How did they do it? They paid attention to each other, right? And we're hardwired to do that. They started to be able to have like like a mind reading capability, like, oh, I think that they're wanting the same thing I do, or I think that they're not liking me right now. I think that they're gonna ostracize me from my tribe right now, and I might be left on the savannah by myself and not survive, right? So when we feel that disconnection, right, one of the biggest things, one of the most powerful emotions that we have is that when we get left out, right? That's prehistoric, because there was an existential event to be left out. And that awkwardness that we're feeling, right, is just like, oh, we don't need each other in the same way we used to survive. Because you could be, you can stay in your house and order Amazon your whole life, right? Now, from this point forward, you could do that if you had the funds and never have to interact with another human again. Now, you would survive, but I don't think that's thriving. And I think that this is where we want to make the leap from surviving to thriving. And for me, I've gotten clear that connection is part of my thriving, and I want more of it, and I want the ice cream all the time. I don't want to depend on someone else to give it to me. I want to be able to create it and be in charge of it and have it be a capability. And it's a big difference. I think are we at time?
Yeah.
So one takeaway, I'm noticing blank. Use that with your colleagues, use that with your right? Because what you're doing is you're sharing what's happening on your side of the connection. You're revealing something that they don't know. They don't know what your attention's on. But if you start to share that, first of all, you start to notice what you're putting your attention on. That's probably something useful to you. Most people don't. They just have the thoughts that they have, and they don't notice what they're putting their attention on. But if you do that, you start to open up people like, oh, you're sharing something. It's a kind of intimacy. You're sharing something about yourself that they didn't know. And if it's about them, they're going to be like, what? I do this at the checkout line at the grocery store, right? Like, oh, I'm noticing those earrings, right? Because I'm always looking. I've set a context for wanting connection. It's important to me. So set the context. Like you notice that I said, like, look, this person has spent a whole lifetime to get in front of you, right? They've gone, it's a miracle they're there. Or this is a $10,000 meal that you're about to have. That's a context, right? That's your story about the event that has you ratchet your attention. What I do in tango is like, look, this might be the last tango dance I ever have, right? This might be the last time I ever see you again, my last time to have impact on you as a human, right? I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You might be the last human I ever see and make eye contact with. This is important, right? It's my last chance to say anything because I don't know what's coming around the corner. That's a context. When you set that context, then you're establishing what kind of level of attention you're going to bring. Is this a valuable experience to you or not? And you can do that anytime you want. It's your choice. Thank you so much for your attention and your courage for coming and helping me stumble through this beta version of this Through the Looking Glass experience. I'll be doing it again. I'll be doing an online version. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be making postings about it there. If you got value out of this talk, raise your hand right now. If you didn't, that's fine. All right. Thank you so much for your attention.